My name is Daisha Wall, and I'm the Community Science Program Manager for CleanAire NC.
I'm Bonita Green, and I'm the Executive Director of the Merrick-Moore Community Development Corporation.
My name is Madison, Fragnito, and I'm the Partnerships Manager with CleanAire NC.
Oh, wow. So initially, I was doing a deep dive on environmental justice to kind of work through some issues that were happening in my neighborhood and trying to figure out how to do that. And so I was on every Zoom call, and on one of those Zoom calls, Daisha was actually on that same Zoom call as well. And she sent me an inbox message on LinkedIn. And so we just started chatting from there. She told me who she was, and she worked for CleanAire. And, we got on a call after that, right?
Yeah, we did.
We got on a Zoom call after that. And so Daisha was really explaining to me a lot about the harmful damages that come from having polluted air, and how a lot of your marginalized communities, your Black communities, formerly redline communities, were specifically put in places that had poor air quality, and how a lot of the diseases we've been told were inherited were actually environmental diseases.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then from there, I came in to a community call. You guys were having one of your meetings, and I did a little presentation giving the overview of air quality, its impacts. We had specific focus on environmental justice implications, how it affects elderly communities, seniors, children. I thought it was a really good call.
Yeah, it was. It opened my eyes to a lot of environmental issues that we have. Because a lot of times we think this is just something that happens to us, and we don't realize that the environment is actually causing some of the issues, the health implications that we have, such as, cancer, such as kidney disease and all of that are caused because of the molecules that we breathe in and create damage within our bodies. So it really opened my eyes a lot. And it was really impactful for the community residents as well, because, we've been told, oh, this is just inherited through your family, and not because of where we live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I know we took it a step further, and we did deployments of the air quality sensors. We now have 17 and the Merrick-Moore, Bragtown, and Walltown communities. So that's really exciting. And Bonita was a huge factor in that and organizing everyone.
Yeah, and it's really, well, in Durham, the issue that I had was you have a lot of environmental organizations that are within the city. And the only thing they talk about is trees. And so I know that trees are not the solution, the overall solution, the end-all solution. If we don't really fully understand what the problem is, planting trees is not just that.
Yeah, and trees are also very expensive to maintain. And, especially if you're talking about residential trees, that could be upwards of thousands of dollars for people to maintain their trees. And so when you're talking about communities that are being impacted by environmental injustice, it is mostly low-income Black communities, and to expect people to, they get these free trees, but just the long term, of maintaining them can be really costly for a lot of people. And so we have to implement other solutions. Yeah. We have to start at the policy level, truly.
Well, the interesting thing is I've been this little air quality warrior in Durham now. And so anytime I go into these environmental meetings and they're talking about, oh, we just need to plant more trees, I'm like, no, that's not actually solving the problem. And it could actually create a larger problem, because governmentally they only plant male trees. And so what we're doing is we're producing an overabundance of pollen in the air during pollen season. And so it's going to contribute to allergies, it's going to contribute to more respiratory issues. And so I've been talking more and more that we need the data to understand what's happening in what areas, and then also the heat island effect of it all as well, that we're actually planting the trees. in the right areas to combat the heat island effect.
That was something that stood out to me when I was helping with some of the monitor installations was they were speaking about, oh, they put these trees in and they're right along the road line. And sometimes since the earth is so shallow in those areas, the trees were kind of off to the side or they were disruptive to their activities and their transportation capabilities just in their own neighborhood and the sidewalks. And so kind of the time span of the solution of planting a tree as well is just not effective for the problems that are occurring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is not.
Yeah, we don't want to discount trees. Trees are great, but it's not the end all be all.
Yeah, no, they are great, but it doesn't get to the root cause
Systemic
of the problem, which is systemic racism, and that we need to have the data. That's important to help us be able to determine how do we move forward and how do we correct the problems. As Daisha mentioned, we have been working instrumentally to put more air monitors across the city of Durham. And through that, we started in Merrick-Moore and in Bragtown, and we did a deployment, and then also in Walltown. We did a deployment there to get those, but we've had other people that are reaching out to us that actually want those air monitors as well in their areas because there's a lot of construction going on. There's a lot of deforestation that's going on. And so how is that affecting the overall air quality in those areas? And what impact is it going to have on the health of the people that live in those areas?
Absolutely.
Especially in southeast rural Durham. I think you guys went down there because they're doing a lot of construction, so there's a lot of blasting that's happening of red dirt and clay. And so that's got to create some huge issues with air quality.
Yeah, and it's this. So at CleanAire, we define cluster networks as 10 plus sensors in a community. And the Merrick-Moore East Durham area was actually one of our first official cluster networks. So that was really exciting for us. But I think that was one of the most beautiful things a part of this partnership is it wasn't just Merrick-Moore. Bonita really connected us with all of these other communities in the surrounding area who are working on the same issue and who are concerned about the same things, maybe going through a little bit of different things as it relates to air quality, but it just really showcases this collaborative approach because, what we do with Merrick-Moore and what we see in the data between Merrick-Moore, Walltown, Bragtown is different. They're all just different. And so being able to compare all of those and come together on a common issue has been really special.
Yeah, and Madison, you actually install about 3 or 4 monitors a little bit earlier this year after our air quality workshop, which was really cool. We collaborated to do an air quality workshop in Merrick-Moore in the Merrick-Moore Park. And I selected that place for several reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because it sits on top of a hill. There are very few trees, and it is a heat island. And so it is oppressively hot there, like during the summer. During the summer months. So I was worried, what is the air quality in that area? But we managed to connect to a few people that attended the workshop to install monitors.
Yeah, and I think that's something as a team, we had our program managers at CleanAire come together. So it was our community science manager, our advocacy manager, education manager, environmental justice, and health manager. And kind of talked through some of the things that you were noticing about the air quality in Merrick-Moore, Walltown, Bragtown, to figure out what we really wanted to include in a workshop about Air Quality 101, different things that you can do to participate in advocacy efforts to advocate for better air quality, and learn about how you can protect your health. And so when our team came together and kind of built out a few modules and interactive activities to do, we went to the Merrick-Moore Community Park and hosted that workshop to kind of just build upon some of the monitoring efforts that we were doing, teach them more about what's going on, and then have the opportunity for more people to sign up for air monitors.
Yeah, I think I would be remiss not to mention when we did the first round of installations and Alex came up to speak with me, just wanting to know what we were doing. I didn't know how invested he was into the air quality field until he reached out to me a few months later and was like, hey, I met you in Bonita's neighborhood. I work for this company and we'd love to donate 485 indoor air sensors to your organization. We just really love the work that you do. We don't have need for this anymore. And so that was a great connection as well, because we can now make more strides and efforts to launching our CleanAire for Kids program, which is doing indoor air quality monitoring in schools. And I know that we're targeting Merrick-Moore Elementary for that. So lots of different collaborations and connections that have been made through this partnership.
Yeah, and I think it's really great because it's needed in so many ways. A lot of the schools are older, and they've had different flooding issues and things like that within the school. And so we need to know. Particularly with Durham, we've had an issue over the past year and a half or so that's come to light with lead in the parks. So we also don't know what's in these schools because they were built like in the 50s. Some of them are very old. So we need to understand, and definitely the air monitors and monitoring devices in the school would be a big help in understanding, what is the air quality within the schools and what impact is that having on our children's lives and their day-to-day functions, how they're thinking, how their cognitive skills.
Yeah, how they're missing school, asthma,
Yeah.
and things of that nature. So in the state of North Carolina in particular, we have, we, just like every other state, we measure at the federal level for criteria air pollutants, and that is what influences policies and programs around air quality in the state. We measure particulate matter, so does the state at a federal level. However, there are only 23 federal particulate matter monitoring stations across the state of North Carolina. And with 100 counties in the state, there's a significant gap in the localized understanding of air pollution at a localized level, especially for communities that have been experiencing this for generations. And so I would say that's the most significant part of work like this, is to be able to provide low-cost, localized air monitoring networks in communities for community members, not only to get access to that data, but to visualize it. And that's another collaboration we didn't mention, because Bonita sits on a stakeholder group for a dashboard that we're creating to visualize this air quality data more. But, we can't often see air pollution, and so we don't know what we're being exposed to and what the levels are. And so I really do believe that these sensors provide such a good foundation for education and for that understanding of air quality, because we don't learn about these things in school, at least at a K through 12 level. At least I don't remember ever really learning about air quality or anything of that nature, or how it impacts your health. Air quality is a leading cause of death globally, as well as in the state of North Carolina. 4 out of the 5 top causes of death in the state of North Carolina have the potential to be caused or exacerbated by air quality. And so it's really important that people understand what they're breathing in right in and around their homes. And I'm not discounting the work of the federal government, because it's really important. But if you're referencing a PM 2.5, a federal PM 2.5 station that is, 10 miles from your house, or in some cases, communities, the nearest one is 65, 85 miles from them, that's not necessarily really going to tell you what's happening right in your front yard.
Right.
And so, education and just get a visualization on that is the greatest significance.
And I honestly enjoy the Purple Air app. I have it on my computer, and I'll usually, when I'm working, I'll just leave the app open, and I'll look at it, monitor it throughout the day to see how the air quality in the different areas we place the monitors change. And I know one evening I was working really late, and I looked at air monitor in Bragtown, one of the ones, and it was like really crazy high. So I got on the phone, I called and said, "What's going on at your house?" And found out, her daughter was having some friends over, and they were sitting outside with a fire pit. I'm like, oh, move it away from the air monitor. So we don't think about, even those little things.
Absolutely. And what you said just, I think, highlights even more the significance and the difference between federal monitoring and community-led monitoring is you're getting those insights. You know, particulate matter, it varies so widely. It can come from so many sources. And so to be able to have the community lived experience in connection with the data is really important because those are significant gaps that exist within our federal monitoring.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going on, or they don't know what's going on at the community level, but we try to understand that as much as we can.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. I think another unique thing is that you send out monthly reports to communities about what their air quality data has been. So they get to notice some trends in certain behavioral things like, we do have a bonfire, maybe we want to sit a little bit further back. I see it turning bright red. Or if you notice somebody in your neighborhood or around you has their monitor fluctuating more frequently, you could ask them, you know, are you driving around more, or is there more traffic happening, or is there something you're doing that is causing this monitor to, you know, pick up on more pollution? And I think that just the lifestyle of kind of thinking about air quality is a really impactful change as well, because it's hard to kind of talk about with people when you can't see it. And so it's something that, you know, you almost would need a tool that either your neighbor has or you have to kind of notice when those changes are happening before it gets to the point of you're like, it's hard to breathe, or why am I coughing so much? Is there pollen on my deck? That sort of thing. And so I think that that's a big indicator.
Yeah.
Well.
See, and that's where that comes into play in my neighborhood, particularly in a lot of marginalized neighborhoods, is that you have people that are working on cars illegally. And what they do is they burn stuff at night. They burn tires, they burn oil and stuff like that at night. And whereas, you know, I'm further away from the main street, people that are closer to it might pick up on that. Their monitors might pick up on that. And it being able to explain to people, because I had one neighbor, she was like, oh, he works on cars, and they think it's not harmful. But I'm like, but it is. If they're burning stuff, it's very harmful. I actually had to discourage my brother-in-law recently because he was getting ready to burn some yard trash. I'm like, don't. Please stop. Because that's the habit of what he's used to doing. But for me, I'm like, you're not realizing that it's a lung issue for me. So I really can't have you burning stuff in my yard that's going to seep into my house that I'm breathing in.
Yeah, so I can speak to the CleanAire portion. Our environmental justice program manager actually has done a wonderful job at creating an intake process. We're a mighty team, but we're very small, and so we've sort of had to, I don't want to say limit ourselves, but be mindful about how we collaborate and partner with communities. We don't want to overstretch ourselves too thin. And so we will, in terms of monitoring, we'll look at the community, look at the interest. Like I mentioned, we typically aim to have at least 10 sensors per community. And that was actually a recommendation made by the Eastern Research Group. We hired them to do a network assessment of our sensors and to find what can we be doing to better help communities and to better reach communities. And they said, you know, you have to stop placing just one sensor or two sensors in a community. You need more to understand how pollution moves throughout a community. And so that's a factor that we look at as well. Do you have the willingness of participation amongst your community? And it just depends per community, but we do really lean on that intake process to see where communities are at, what the issues are, what resources we have available, not only on staff, but in terms of sensors as well. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I think that was a great kind of synopsis. Our environmental justice manager has done a great job of kind of identifying what allows us to have effective networks and have, you know, the data that we gather in the monthly reports that Daisha takes the time to help put out. Kind of understood. We take the time to do education sessions on the front end as well, you know, in Air Quality 101, kind of gather interest from community members. Hey, do we have 10 people or schools or churches that are interested in having a monitor and learning a little more about what's going on with the air around them? And then as we do these installations, training them as community scientists to be able to manage their monitors, to have the interest in understanding, you know, how do I upkeep this monitor? You know, what if somebody asks me about what this monitor, hey, it's red today, what does that mean? They can give kind of a little idea of what's going on. And then we tend to do another education session once the monitors are up, kind of continuing that understanding of the Purple Air Map and navigating the tools that we offer at CleanAire, and also kind of building on the advocacy efforts that you can take as an individual or community, and kind of just building that comfort and confidence talking about air quality and what you can do to improve your health. So, I mean, that kind of goes into how we select communities, but also the process behind, you know, the amount of intention that we put into deploying sensor networks and the education that's of value.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of people come to CleanAire versus us sort of seeking them out as well. And so that sort of helps to just establish a good foundation of trust for CleanAire, because that's a huge part of this process as well. The trust building process can take years upon years upon years. And so to be able to be reached out to by communities is, I think, a good foundation as well.
Yeah, and I guess for Merrick-Moore, when we're looking at partnering with other organizations, it's an overall alignment with missions and goals, and that it's truly about being helpful to the community, because we've been overlooked for so very long. And you know, we've run into the bureaucracy of government, and they're like, oh, you're just being emotional. So I understand the data is vital to be able to create change and make change happen, because you can't ignore the data. And so, you know, that's what we kind of look for in that, and forward leading, that an organization really is centering community and the community wants and needs. And it's not like a selfish lead on there. There's no hidden agenda on there. So that's kind of how we choose to partner with organizations. But I think the big thing with working with CleanAire, this data is so vitally important, and more people are wanting to have that and understand that. Because as you are doing environmental justice advocacy work in an arena that's pro-development and not really environmental, doesn't have a lead with an environmental focus, I should say. Having this sort of data is so vitally important. Like we've used this data when it comes to transportation issues. We're using this data in health equity areas, also in writing grants that are able to get us the funds for the work that we need to do, we're trying to do in the community. But we're also trying to gain ownership of 51 acres of conservation land now that's close by us. And so having this data of the air quality to say, we need this land to create a nature preserve, because we are so heavily surrounded with industrial. We are so heavily surrounded with highways and roadways and trains and all of these bad players in the air and the steel company, you know. We need to have this land to create a nature preserve to help balance out the heat island effect, hopefully, but also to act as a good character in a bad place, you know, where there is just so many pollutants in the air, that it can also be a place where animals can be protected and live, so to help protect the biodiversity in the area, but also a place where mentally and spiritually people can go to and walk and be safe and experience nature, which in health and well-being, a lot of people kind of don't really think about the emotional and the mental well-being part of it. But having those spaces is really important for that. And so this data that we're getting from CleanAire is helping to support a lot of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, and I love that that is an effort that you are undertaking, especially for Black communities, because for so long we were kept from green spaces. And so to be able to provide that to your community is really powerful, and it helps to break down this systemic racism that has entrenched our community for so long, and just breaking through it ourselves and not depending on, you know, the government to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, we do. We do. And that's kind of a mindset that I'm hoping to model within the city, is that to community leaders, don't wait for them.
Yeah,
Don't beg them. You have to make your own way, create your own path, and make your own way through these systems.
The first one that I thought of was increasing awareness, about it, on just what's going on around you. I think that is also very powerful to just have a little bit more of an understanding of when your health is being impacted and not feeling like you don't have access to that information or an understanding of what that is. Because like you mentioned, we don't really learn about this in school. It's something that you have to kind of come together and talk about with people and then seek out a trusted resource to kind of provide that information to you, and have it be specific to your neighborhood and so localized is also very important, rather than just relying on a federal monitor, which may be further away from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think really the awareness part of it is key, because we don't talk about it. We're not taught this. And even in our local environmental community within Durham, it's not talked about. It's just like, oh, air quality, we just need to plant more trees. But in the meanwhile, we have developers that are clear-cutting forests. And so planting like 10 trees somewhere is not going to cover, a forest being removed fully, but also understanding the underlying impacts of health. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have learned through this process of collaborating with CleanAire, and being able to speak as if I'm an expert. And just kind of put people like a little back in this, people who have these PhDs or whatever, make them take a step back and reevaluate their positioning even, because they don't fully have the understanding of the impact of just planting male trees and the over pollination in the air. They don't fully understand that, but also just understanding the importance of having this data and this information at your hand.
Absolutely.
And I think it helps you make better decisions when it comes to how we're going to deal with the air quality situation in specific areas, when you have that data to support that.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's not just enlightening community, which is very important, but it's also enlightening our government officials, it's our elected officials, that this is something that we need. We need to study our air quality a lot better and more to understand what's happening and what's going on. Because, planting a tree, trees are great, going or not tree, but it's not the overall solution provider if you don't understand what the underlying problem is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another piece of that is the strength in having the conversations and the relationship building. We've come across so many partnerships working together. I mean, we partnered on grant work, we partnered on workshops. We're also both a part of the Clean Connected Communities coalitions, which work on equitable rural transportation, which plays directly into air quality. You've connected us with El Centro Hispano, you've connected us to Preserve Rural Durham, and all of these other community groups are interested in learning about their air quality. And eventually they've expressed interest in also receiving an air monitoring network. And so kind of just the power of you being a leader and confident in talking about these things and confident in talking about your experiences learning about air quality, and bringing together different community groups around Durham and across North Carolina that are interested in doing this work at CleanAire has been amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, and I definitely want to continue that work because, like I said, it's education, and it's part of our mission is to provide that education to marginalized communities and individuals. We need to, if we don't know and don't understand, we can't do better. So we want to continue that as we move forward through 2025 and years to come, is just keep expanding that network across Durham so that we're covering all quarters of the city. Yeah.
with the air sensors, we utilize purple air, and the purple air has lasers, and that counts the particles of particulate matter, and it outputs the air quality index, and that is typically associated with a color as well. So 0 to 50 is good, 50 to 100 is mild, 100 to 150 is moderate, and then upwards it is bad. However, that is based off of EPA standards, and typically what we say at CleanAire is no exposure to particulate matter is safe. And we can even see that at the federal level, where they are continuing, as they should, to reduce the health-based standards. So it used to be 12. 0 to 12 was good in particulate matter, and now it's 0 to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. Sorry to get scientific here. But so, yeah, we utilize the air quality index to understand what's happening. We typically look at a daily average to weed out anomalies. So I have not seen any improvements. However, I have not done a large-scale analysis. I have been meaning to talk to you about this, but I'm actually looking to get some Duke students who are part of a climate coalition to do a large-scale analysis of the Durham data from the time we installed it to now. So right now I can provide those monthly reports, but I'm just one person. We do have 285 sensors across the state of North Carolina. So getting those deep dive analysis have been kind of challenging for me, and so I have to get support, but we're getting support for that, and I'm really excited.
Okay, cool.
But what I see in the data is what is expected, and I would also be curious to hear from Bonita from a community perspective. But for example, we have a air sensor host. His name's Brandon Williams. He lives right next to the school. And when I was at his home installing the sensor, the school buses were passing back and forth, and I took note of the time. And you can look back at his data and see those same times. It's
like this one is.
And so you see what you would expect. And then Vanessa Mason Evans in Bragtown, she lives on a major road, and her monitor is typically always the highest.
Yeah.
And so seeing those trends, I feel as though it can be validating for community members, especially if they're experiencing adverse health impacts, to be able to see, okay, yes, my air quality is being impacted by these sources. So, yeah, like I said, you can see, unfortunately, what you would expect to see out of the data.
Yeah, and I think, too, as I was saying before, these things happen. These cars are passing or vehicles passing, and we're not considering the emissions that are coming from the vehicles and how those emissions are impacting our health. I know for me, we've got a lot of seniors and retired people in our neighborhood. And my neighbor next door, Mr. Brown, he used to be out in his riding lawnmower at the heat of the day. And then he likes to sit outside. And so I would check to see what the air quality was. And then I'd go over, I'm like, you can't be outside. You got to be in the house. He's like 96 now. He just had a birthday. And so I'm like, we need to protect you. And so I've had those conversations even with my brother-in-law, who's in his 70s. He would always come around like 2 o'clock in the heat of the afternoon to do my lawn. And I'm like, this is not good. You can't be out here. He's like, oh, sometimes he'll wear a mask, but sometimes he doesn't. But it's really understanding when is the worst part of the day for us. And interestingly, one of the things that I noticed in my neighborhood from my monitor, there seemed to be spikes that were like late in the evening. And trying to understand why is that? Is it from the roads, or is it actually from people who are working on cars and they're burning? At nighttime, so that you don't see the smoke in the daytime. Yeah.
But yeah, so the data can be really good at, and I would say that's another metric, using qualitative and quantitative data. So utilizing the information that community members tell us. And Bonita was actually part of an advocacy training that we did in Charlotte. But out of that advocacy training, one of the community members had recommended that we have a reporting form available, so community members can note when they're experiencing things, and I can go back and connect that data with their experience. And so, that has been a really valuable tool. I'd like to see more adoption in the Durham area, and we can talk about that. But yeah, there's a lot of tools available within CleanAire and that exist widely to be able to understand that data more, and to be able to utilize the data dashboard as well that we're creating that will be launched in 2025. But Bonita has been a stakeholder for that, and it is a culmination of all sorts of data that you can add to the map as it relates to air quality data. And we've been working with Bonita and other stakeholders who are in communities that are being impacted by air pollution to build a tool that will be useful for them to understand what's going on. And so really excited to be able to utilize those metrics as well in understanding the full picture, because that actually brings in federal and low-cost sensor data as well and combines them. But yeah, I would say the main way is being a sensor host. That's a commitment in and of itself. And yeah, being able to work with Bonita to understand what's going on the ground, being connected with other community members through this effort. We had touched upon the Preserve Rural Durham group. So I've been working with them and actually moving their sensor around as development is happening, because what they will do when they're doing these large-scale development projects is they'll clear the land and then they'll plant seeds, and all of this grass will grow, and just kind of creates this facade that not much happened. And so as they're moving the development around these areas, we'll move the sensor. But that's one in particular collaboration that came out of this. We also connected with Jeremy at the Air Quality 101 workshop, and he does a lot of work with veterans and wanting to incorporate the information he learned into the workshop with his veteran group, into groups that may not normally be learning about air quality, and having CleanAire come in and speak about those things. But yeah, and I know we've touched upon the many, many different collaborations, but just saying again, the connection with Alex and being able to relaunch our CleanAire for Kids program, bringing that service to schools. So many different ways that community members have been involved in this effort.
And I have another, because we're getting ready to start home repairs program. And so one of the things that I discussed with Vanessa was that the homeowners who want to get repairs, we could also see if they would like to have an air monitor installed at their home. Yeah, and
it would be interesting too to do a before and after for indoor air quality, and be able to utilize that information to advocate for more programs to help people get retrofitted to their homes.
Because a lot of the older homes need weatherization on them, and so that's another way.
Yeah,
we can work through this.
It's always evolving.
It's evolving air quality and all of the community efforts.
Yeah,
exactly. I can start with the just the cluster network. Like I mentioned, Durham was our first, I want to say, official cluster network, because we did it all in one day. And we built upon it. I think one day we did 12, and now we have 17 in Merrick-Moore and immediate surrounding neighborhoods. But just going through that process of deploying a cluster network, learning what worked for community members has been, I can't even tell you how helpful for my program, and understanding how to connect with community members, how to get people interested on that level, because 10 sensors might not sound a lot, but to get 10 people committed to monitoring air quality at their home, especially when they may not have prior information or knowledge about air quality, can be very difficult. And so learning through that process has been really helpful for me, as well as sort of being able to learn about ways to disseminate data to community members. Because just for some background, I was the first environmental justice program manager for CleanAire, and then I transitioned into the community science role. And so learning the nuances between the two has been really helpful, but in transitioning the EJ work into the ComSci work and how we get data out to community members has been particularly valuable for me. And starting those monthly reports was something that was implemented once I became the manager for this program. And being able to do that with the Merrick-Moore community as sort of the first community to offer that service has been extremely valuable for our program and has helped us grow a lot and to be able to offer that to other communities.
I think also building out our impact in Durham. We're a statewide organization, but we have a lot of our offices based in Charlotte, and we do work in that region of the state, but really building out our partnerships and our impact in the Durham area. Moving through the first Air Quality 101 workshop before the monitor network installation, and then the following Air Quality 101 workshop really helps us kind of think through how we want to build out our materials for education. What questions are being asked, what type of advocacy efforts are people interested in doing, and also building an understanding of how advocacy differs across the state. What some priorities are our community members, what the priorities of the people that are at these town hall meetings, what they're interested in, and kind of navigating that dialogue. I think another strength is, working on grants together. We applied to that Central Pines Regional Council effort to help support the Air Quality 101 workshop. And since then, we've had a lot of interest expressed from other community groups in hosting something similar. Just wanting to learn about what's going on around them. We're not sure if we're ready for monitors, but we have some concerns related to transportation-related air quality. And so kind of just getting people thinking about it and understanding that is something that we can offer, and that there's another community leader that they can reach out to and ask questions about, what was your experience here?
Yeah.
I think that's really strengthened our partnership capabilities just across the state and especially within this area.
Yeah. And for Merrick-Moore, I'm just going to go back to the educational aspect of it. Because if people don't know, like I didn't know and fully understand air quality and until I met Daisha. She's taught me so much. And so being able to take that knowledge and information and share it out broadly to others throughout the city to get them interested in hosting an air monitor at their home and just understanding the underlying health implications of if you have a poor air quality in your area, how that can affect your health, and like what kind of changes can I make personally that's going to help improve my health situation. And then hosting the air monitors and the data. At Merrick-Moore, we do a lot of different types of advocacy work for the people in our community. And having that data so greatly supports all of those things, whether we're working in home repairs, whether we're working on infrastructure transportation type of advocacy, whether we're working on food assistance and health equity type of, or conservation even, all of that data is really important and key to all of the work that we do, but helping other community leaders understand that they need that data as well. You can only beg and plead so long and keep getting, hit in the face with a no. But if you have that data, like I said, they can't ignore that at all. So it's really affected our work and what we've been able to get done in a positive way, and the resources that we've been able to bring to our community members and to other communities as well. There's not a set plan yet, but in my mind, we will expand this network in 2025. I'd like for us to be able to do at least 2 more events in 2025. I think it's a good time to revisit our community meetings. As our neighborhood is changing and there's more and more new houses that are coming in the area, I think it's time to revisit that and try to engage and get a few more monitors in the neighborhood, but also doing something bigger and broader, as well as doing another workshop.
Yeah.
Since we got the first one under the belt. Doing another workshop, just to be able to continue to broaden the network in Durham, continue to share that information and to educate people I think it'll only make a stronger base for CleanAire in the Durham area. I know there's been a lot of interest of late from governmental agencies in doing work on air quality at different levels, but that's more in academia, where they're doing studies, whereas CleanAire is actually doing the work. And so, yeah, I think we'll definitely plan on doing that, and we can collaborate and work and see where does that fit in with CleanAire and your schedule. Because the more visibility they get, the more in demand you are.
Absolutely. But we definitely prioritize our existing relationships and the communities that we work with. And so that's definitely a priority of mine, is to get more sensors in Merrick-Moore, Bragtown, Walltown, surrounding areas, and bring more people into the fold. As I mentioned, we will be working with Duke students to do yearly, well, it's been, 2 years? Probably like a 2-year analysis of all of the data we've collected in the community. And my goal is to get everyone together and go over the data, look at trends, find out what months were the worst, what might have been going on here, how do the years vary, and use that also as an educational opportunity for the community. And that's a service that I'd like to start next year, and that's a priority of mine.
You know, as we do more education and invite more community leaders in, and people who are doing work in community in to learn about CleanAire and the work that they do at CleanAire, I think that's the main way that, you know, Merrick-Moore can help expand the network in Durham. Durham is a growing city, and we definitely need to learn more about how the impacts of traffic and building and deforestation is affecting air quality in specific areas across the city. Like right now, we're kind of centered a little bit, we're a little bit in East Durham and North Durham and kind of on the west end, but we need to grow that network across the entire city to get a more holistic outlook of what the air quality in Durham looks like. So I think, you know, for me, it's just finding those opportunities to talk about CleanAire and the purple air monitors with people in the city, and introducing them to Daisha and Madison, you know, whether it's installing purple air monitors on their home, or we're doing workshops in education.
I would echo that. I would say reach out. I mean, if you're an educator or a community member, we have so many tools that we're able to provide. We can do a workshop. We have some on-demand learning modules deploying in 2025 to learn about Air Quality 101, community science, environmental justice, health, a lot of our different programmatic areas. And just if you're interested in volunteering with CleanAire or doing some work in Durham related to air quality, just reach out to one of us. And we're happy to plug you in where you're most comfortable and where we're doing the work.
It's necessary. You know, it's really, really, really necessary. Understanding that a lot of your formerly redline communities where Black and poor people live were strategically placed in areas of poor air quality. And the reason why the Black population or the brown population have a lot of health equity issues is because of where they live. And so, and most people don't understand that. I didn't understand it, and I grew up with asthma. Didn't understand it at all until meeting Daisha. So I just think it's necessary. It's work that needs to be done, that has to be done as education, and providing that education and understanding for people, because a lot of times we might feel helpless. We don't know why things are happening to us. but having the information and that knowledge can help you shift and make changes, and not feel so helpless.
Yeah, I would just add to that, your voice matters. Unfortunately, the government is not going to save us.
Yeah.
We have to save ourselves, and so the best thing we can do is build community around the issues that are important to us. So yeah, find your ways to plug in, even if it's not with air quality, with the environment. Find things that are important to you, and plug in. And this is, if you are interested in air quality and you are interested in the environment, this is a great way to do it. All are welcome in our space. And so I just encourage anyone to reach out, even if you just want to learn more. You don't have to commit to hosting a sensor, but if you just want to learn more about air quality, you learn about its impacts, find the resources around you, reach out, and we'd love to have you.
Yeah. I think explore some tools online, look at the Purple Air map, just kind of poke around, see what's going on around you, and maybe look into being a community scientist for something that interests you. Learn more about something that's happening in your community, talk to other people in your community that might be experiencing similar concerns to you or just similar interests to you. I think that would be the one takeaway.
Yeah, there's a lot of great groups in North Carolina that are doing other community science type works. So there's one group in particular, NCEJN, they actually look at spider webs to test toxic metals on spider webs to identify what's happening with air quality. There's also another group that tests lichens on trees to see what's happening with air quality. So if hosting a sensor isn't of interest to you, there's so many other projects that are going on across the state to understand air quality and to understand our environment, and we'd be happy to provide those resources as well. I just want to thank Bonita. You've been literally a gold star partner. It's just been such a joy and so beautiful to me to be able to work with you. I know you've mentioned a lot that you've learned a lot from me, but I've learned a lot from you. And I wouldn't be in this position and be able to do the work I do without community leaders like yourself to push forward and to continue fighting. I unfortunately see this across, because we're statewide, almost every single community that we work in, there are community members like Bonita who are working day in and day out for their communities with not much support. And so one thing that I will encourage people to do is find the community leaders in your community and find ways to support them, because Bonita's tired, and a lot of them are tired, and this work needs to continue on for generations, and so find ways to plug in with your community leaders and ways that you can support them, even if that's just helping pass out flyers, helping to send out emails, helping to write a Facebook post. There's so many ways that you can help to get the word out and to get people together, and it shouldn't just fall on one person in a community. We are the owners of our community and our outcomes, and so plugging in where it's needed is really important. And thank you for all the work that you do, Bonita.
Your son is a labor of love.
Really happy to star partner. Gold star.
Yeah. What I would say, the pleasure of working with CleanAire is that they're the experts in what they do, but they listen to community. And that's one key thing when it comes to partnering with larger organizations and community, is that the community knows and understands how to talk and relate to each other on a level. And sometimes with some organizations, they can, this is the way that we do things, but they've always been very flexible with me. And so I do appreciate that. I truly do appreciate the partnership. I care deeply about my community, and so that's why I do the work that I do. I grumble and I fuss, but I do it because I do love my community. I love Durham. And I just think that people, as we grow and as we age, we have a right to live out our lives in healthy spaces and in our homes. And so I want You know, I don't want to forget about, like, because I'm aging, I don't want to forget about those who are before me. I want to make a safe space for them too. And making sure that they have good quality air to breathe is one of the ways that I do that. Yeah. Cool. We're good.